Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 20. Episode 20, the big 2-0 of the Just Honin podcast with your host, Justin Mazzola, and the.
Adam Honer.
We're having a little bit of technical difficulties today, so we're filming on Zoom
Yep.
instead of through Spotify. So we're limited to about a 30-minute episode, but maybe that's for the best. Maybe that'll keep our rants dialed in. We can just get straight to business. And that business includes the main thing going on right now, the main relevant thing in our lives with the NBA Finals. The Pacers are matching up against the Oklahoma City Thunder in the NBA Finals. Pacers beating the Knicks in 6 games, and the Thunder beating the Wolves in 5 games. Five
I
games,
don't
I
think it
believe.
was a sweep. It wasn't a sweep.
Yeah, in 5 games. So two teams, arguably two of the best offensive rated teams over the last 40 games of the season into the playoffs, meeting up in the finals. And both of which I don't think either team has won an NBA Finals. I think the Supersonics won, but the Thunder themselves, since moving to Oklahoma City and Indiana Pacers, no titles. So somebody's gonna be getting a new ring, and then as well as the players, I think Pascal Siakam on the Pacers has a ring. Thomas Bryant has a ring from the Nuggets, I think, or and Alex Caruso, our former
Mhm.
Laker on the Thunder, has a ring before. But other than that, a lot of younger guys, and should be an interesting matchup. Adam, thoughts?
I like this matchup. I think this is a favorable matchup that the fans like. I think with the Super Bowl, we were kind of unlucky from a overall NFL fans perspective because it was like kind of like the same teams again. But this is like really fresh, new teams, new blood, very interesting. And I also think these teams have a lot of similarities. I think these teams play with the chip on their shoulder, and they're also, small market Midwest teams. So their cities represent for them. They have been representing for them, showing up to their games and all that. And their cities definitely have the energy. So these teams are very similar. And I think I was seeing some clips about like Jalen Williams and Miles Turner, like in press conferences, like talking about the other team and like high praises and some of the similarities that they see. And I think they already have that kind of respect for each other. So it's gonna be a fun series. I think the Thunder are gonna be the favorites, but I think it's perfect for the Pacers because the Pacers are underdogs. That's kind of their motto, their team. They're kind of the ones that have always, been kind of not really written off, but not really, the top of everyone's list. They're always kind of in the back seat. So yeah, definitely like the dynamic of these finals, and it's gonna be really fun. Shea versus Tyrese is gonna be interesting. I know Shea. I mean, we can all agree Shea's probably more of an elite player, but I mean, if Tyrese can show up, then he can really, if he can lead the Pacers to an NBA championship, then that does stock for himself. So
Yeah, and Tyrese Halliburton, as we discussed in the last podcast, was voted the most underrated player in the NBA.
overrated, overrated.
Yes, overrated. Yes, overrated player in the NBA, and he's showed up in all three series in big ways. In the opening round, he had a game winner to close out the series against the Bucks. He had a crazy game winner against the Cavs, where he missed the free throw, got the rebound, dribbled it out, looked at the clock, chucked it up, drops in, and then he had a shot that everybody thought was to be a game winner against the Knicks, but ended up pushing that to overtime, and they won of a crazy 2K bounce shot, and he's been a great scorer for them. Like it's like when he scores more than 20 points, they do really well, but also just setting up everybody on offense. And then on the flip side, you got the Thunder, and they have Shea, the head of that
Mhm.
snake, and they have everybody else just like contributing in every way, hitting threes, cuts, defense. Um, it's two teams that have been playing really well in the playoffs and have been tested. I think the Pacers have been tested more so than the Thunder, but that's just because the Thunder are just, they're the number one team in the NBA for a reason. And um, they've kind of, aside from the Denver series, they've kind of just cruised the NBA Finals.
I think like one thing to note is the Pacers specialty I really noticed this postseason was their comeback ability, especially in the fourth quarter. They really turned it on in the fourth quarter. And I feel like the Thunder have been like the strongest team in the fourth quarter where they've, most of the time, most of their games at least, maybe there's one or two where they messed up, but they've been able to, go into the fourth quarter with like somewhat of a lead and hold that lead. And it'll be really interesting to see if the Thunder are strong enough to hold their lead against the Pacers, or if the Pacers' comeback ability is able to apply to the Thunder as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, especially like I think throughout the course of the season, the Thunder won so many games by so many points that they never were really tested in the last 5 minutes, clutch time or of the NBA uh through the regular season and most of the playoffs. And you saw in the Denver series that when the game got close in the end, I feel like Denver typically had the upper hand in those close, like every possession matters down the stretch. Uh, I think Denver kind of had the upper hand, but OKC was able to pull it out. Several, a few in a close, several games in being close at the end, but also like they've had a lot of blowouts this postseason versus like you said, the Pacers have had a lot more closer games and a lot of games where their back is against the wall and they show up and go on a run. Um, so it'll be interesting to see, like you said, if the Thunder can just do what they've been doing all season and not even, need to play that last 5 minutes of the game, or if the Pacers, have something else in store for them.
Mhm. Yeah. And I think the teams match up well defensively. I think you got to think of it, as, coming from the Pacers side, how are you going to deal with this Thunder team? And I feel like they have like some of the more athletic bigs on their team to really help with, the big situation in OKC. Just because I felt like the Thunder's bigs were pretty strong, but like I think they're not as athletic as the Pacers bigs because you got Miles Turner, you got Pascal Siakam, you got Obi Toppin coming off the bench, and that's going to be really good defensively, especially coming up against Holmgren and Hartenstein, especially when Holmgren plays that five and they really stretch the floor. They're going to be able to play small and have Pascal Siakam in there and Obi Toppin at the same time. And I think defensively as well with the guards. I mean, it really comes down to can you contain Shea? Can you contain Shea? And who knows if that's going to happen or not? That's the big question mark, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they'll be able to contain Shea necessarily, but because they weren't. But I think if you get him to, there's gonna be games where Shea's gonna burst for like 30 plus points, right? But we saw in the Indiana Pacers Knicks series, I feel like there were a few games where Brunson had like 40, and the Pacers were still managed to, either win those games or maybe they lost one of them. But there were also games where Brunson had like 17 or 20. So I think if you can keep Shea just not popping off every game, and you got to win. And then also in the games that he is popping off, just making sure that the role players aren't hitting every single shot, which is, it's definitely a tall task for the Pacers because the role players of OKC have been playing extremely well. And then even if Shea is going off, the same thing. It's like Shea is great, but at the end of the day, he can only do so much. Like there's not one player. So I think if you try to with Neesmith and Nemhard, if those two can work against Shea, wear him down, and then what the other guys on the supporting side are just making sure, you know, the players aren't getting easy back cuts. Like I know Alex Caruso in the last series was getting like Julius Randle will be in the corner guarding Alex Caruso. There'll be a play up here with Shea, and everybody just focuses, and Alex Caruso easy back up, layup, and just like easy stuff like that to kind of focus in on. And both, Rick Carlisle has been around for a long time. I'm sure they're going to game plan well. Uh, and we'll just see what offense comes out on top, honestly, is what I think it's going to come down to.
And then I think if you look at it from an OKC perspective, trying to stop the Indiana Pacers, I mean, it's between, you guys start with Tyrese Halliburton, and you kind of notice that a little bit, like Knicks did somewhat of a decent job. I mean, there were some games where Tyrese just had like insane triple doubles, like, but the thing is, when Tyrese can't score, he can pass, and he's one of the best assisters in the game. And that's where, Pascal Siakam shine. And, we saw him win Eastern Conference Finals MVP, which, you wouldn't think that he would have won that going into the series, but he definitely showed that he deserved it. So, the teams are very similarly lined up where, they have their superstar point guard, and they have their bigs. I mean, there's pretty strong bigs, and then they have the wing players, the 3-and-D players, your Jalen Williams, your Aaron Nesmiths, Lou Dortz, you name it, especially even guys coming off the bench like Aaron Wiggins and Isaiah Joe, and you can go down the list, Andrew Nemhard, like, they match up really well. So, I mean, it's going to come down to who's hot, who's hitting their shots, because we saw guys like Nesmith really go off, in these clutch games. So who's really going to step up?
Yeah. And I saw I saw this stat. Um, there's kind of a crazy stat where Halliburton is like if they missed, I think in this season. Now the Pacers themselves had a good season, and so I wouldn't think the winning percentage is all that crazy of a difference. Um, but when Halliburton, I feel like Halliburton sometimes can be too like passive on offense. Like sometimes he won't be looking for his shot. Um, and you can see like when he'll have games in the season where he had like 8 points or 12 points, and like I think they definitely need him to be closer to that 20 range because
Mhm.
he's getting all the assists regardless. But if he's hitting he's been hitting some deep threes in the playoffs, getting to the hoop.
Mhm.
If he's doing that as well as the assists, he'd be great. He'd be great. And I think the Pacers can have a strong chance of winning. But it's interesting. I saw this stat, and I don't know if you saw this. If he misses his first shot of the game, or we'll start with if he makes his first shot of the game, the first one he takes, they have a winning percentage of 711, right? So they're winning like every 7 out of every 10 games. Points per game of 22.9, field goal percentage of 52.7%, which I would say is pretty good for a point guard because they're not dealing with a lot of high percentage shots, dunks, and all that type of stuff. Field goal attempts a game, 15. So he's been really looking to score. And 3-point percentage near 45%. If he misses the first shot of the game, the winning percentage goes to 600. So like winning one less game. Points per game drops to 15. So it's like 15.4, nearly an 8-point de decrease. Field goal percentage drops 11%, about 11% to 41.9%. Field goals attempted, he takes three less shots a game. And his 3-point percentage goes from 44.6%, so near 45, to 31.9. So it's like a steep drop off. It's like the first shot is like a huge confidence booster for him. And at the end of the day, Indiana needs him to be really confident because when he's confident, he's very, very good.
Yeah. And I think he's confident regardless, if he's hitting his shots or he's not. I think he, has been, especially this past year, has really grown even more you can see his personality more just in general. Not even on the basketball court. I feel like I'm just, seeing more and more of him all the time and kind of grow into that superstar. So I think regardless of how he plays, he's going to have that confidence. I mean, even if he has the confidence, doesn't mean they're going to win or he's going to have, a lot of points or a lot of production that they're looking for. But, I think we can't expect that confidence from him a lot. And Shea is a different type of confidence, I would say. He's very low key. He's definitely more reserved and, he's not as outspoken as Tyrese Halliburton, but, that's what makes him really good is he doesn't really have to say anything. He just does his work and it produces. So I'm
Yeah.
really interested to see, how these two guys, because they're the faces of, the finals this year. So I'm definitely interested to see how, they do comparatively.
Yeah. I think, Shea, he's all about just getting to his spot. And he's like,
Mm-hmm.
it's a perfect shot and release every single time. And there'd be times against the Timberwolves where he's literally just dribbling. Because if you pressure him, right, he's gonna draw a
Mm-hmm.
foul, or he's gonna like use a move, get by you, hold you on his back. He's very crafty. But like,
Mm,
so I think the Timberwolves at times they'd pressure him, but he would be able to cook him. So then if you're sitting off of him, there was one play I saw. It was either against Jaden McDaniels or Julius Randle. He literally just walked to the free throw line, no moves, just kept him walking, and then just pulled up for a
yeah,
mid-range. It's just like he's getting to
yeah,
his spot. He knows what he wants to do, and it's just like a warm up for him. Honestly,
yeah.
out there, it's really
I
crazy.
mean, he scores at all three levels so well. It's quite amazing to see. And it's just that he's so composed in the paint and when he's driving to the basket, you know. You don't know what he's gonna do. He's got all options going, but he knows he can take a shot at any spot of the floor and it's gonna go in. So um
Yeah,
his play style is really special and he's really turning into that, elite player. And hey, we'll see if he ends up if they end up winning the NBA championship, not only would he get, an NBA championship, probably also be, the NBA Finals MVP, already the Western Conference Finals MVP. I mean,
and
what a
MVP of the
season from
season,
Shea.
scoring title.
Scoring title. And I mean, it's kind of crazy like how he's just kind of developed because he was a lottery pick, but by the Clippers, and people knew who he was, but he was definitely under the radar a bit more,
Oh yeah,
compared to
100%.
some of these young stars. And he was that young trade piece that the Clippers used to get Paul George, which you know how that worked out. So I mean, the Thunder are just cruising right now, and they just need to lock in. And my prediction right now, I think it's going to be Thunder in 5 or 6.
Yeah,
Um, that's I can't. I would say 6, but I'm leaning towards 5. I think it's between 5 or 6, just because that comeback factor that the Pacers do have. Um, but I do think OKC is just the stronger team in general, and we've kind of seen that throughout the postseason. But I will say that Pacers have had some tougher matchups. They took out the Cavaliers. I mean, they took out the Bucks first, which I didn't. It was a good series. I think they were expected to do it. But taking out the Cavs, everyone we even talked about this going into the season that, or later in the season where the Cavs, were that number one team in the East. We're like, yeah, Cavs and Celtics Eastern Conference Finals, and they're
yeah,
probably going to be, and they weren't even, they totally neutralized them and didn't help the Cavaliers had a ton of injuries, but the Pacers made it through, and then the Knicks again, and they really showed, they weren't the favorites in most series, and they could really, turn it on its head. But we'll see.
yeah. And I think in the last two series, they've been the lower seed and had to go into a hostile environment. Going into
Hmm.
Cleveland has some really good fans, and then going to New York, man,
And they've been winning the games.
and they've
They've been
been
winning
winning.
the
They've been
games.
better, like
Yeah.
better away than at home. So now they go into Oklahoma City, another hostile environment. Like the Oklahoma City Thunder fans are really, really they get crazy in that stadium. There's a lot of energy in that stadium, and it's a tough place to win. But if a team's gonna do it, it would be the Pacers. I agree with you. I think the Thunder will win this series. But like you said, I think the Pacers have been tested. They've played three really good teams. Um, and the Bucks didn't have Damian Lillard. And the game that they did have him, he was coming back from blood clot injury, you know, disability injury, whatever you want to call it. Um, but playing against the Cavs, team with the best record in the East, and then playing against the Knicks, a team that beat the Boston Celtics. And I know Jason Tatum got injured, but at the time they were up 3-1. Jason Tatum got injured at the end of that game four where the Knicks had already won the game. Um, so the Pacers played some good teams, some good players, and I'm sure they're not going to be scared of the Thunder. They're going to go out there, play their game, and just let the chips fall where they may, I guess.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm looking
but yeah,
forward to it.
if
And
Shea wins, it'll be a crazy season.
I think the small market, I think we mentioned this in the beginning, but the two small market teams are really cool. So you don't really get to see that as much, especially, teams that don't really have, much of a, sports base. They're not sports towns. You're not your Los Angeles's, your New York's, your Chicago's. I mean, you can go down the list, but like these are teams that don't have, you know, many professional sports teams. So this is a big deal for both these cities. I mean, OKC doesn't have anything. The only other OKC team is the OKC Comets, the Dodgers AAA.
Yeah.
So
And I think
like,
someone in my work just went to Oklahoma City
hmm
for a like an engagement party. And now the games were happening. It was the playoffs. It was like last week or 2 weeks, when they're in their Timberwolves series. They were in Minnesota, so it wasn't like,
hmm
but there was a watch party at the Oklahoma City Thunder arena, but the
hmm
streets were like he said were completely empty. Like
Oh, I
nobody
bet.
was out and about
Mm-hmm.
watching the games. Versus if you go to like a New York, LA, like every the
Yeah.
the bar scene, everybody's watching games. Um,
hmm
and so yeah, it is cool to see. I think a lot of people wanted to see the Knicks Timberwolves finals from just the perspective of the trade that happened in the beginning of the season, and seeing those
hmm
two teams match up. But from a basketball perspective, I think this is a great matchup. Um,
hmm
don't know what viewership it'll it'll get, but I know I'll be at least I probably won't watch the full games. I'll definitely watch game one tomorrow full. Otherwise, probably just tuning in here and there and then watching the fourth quarter. Um,
Yeah.
if the Lakers were in it, I'd be dialed. I'd be so dialed. I'd be coming home, sitting on this couch, and just by myself, focusing and yelling at my computer screen. But
Yeah. Yeah.
not the case. Um,
Unfortunately.
but yeah, great NBA Finals in store, and we'll see what happens.
But in lieu of the Knicks getting eliminated, they fired their head coach, Tom Thibodeau,
Yeah,
which
which a lot of people were
I don't
surprised
know.
about.
Yeah.
I think he'd been the coach there for like 5 or 6 seasons, if I were to guess.
Mhm.
Um, led them to the Eastern Conference Finals this year. At times, I think people question his decision making when it comes to playing his players like the whole season and like 40 plus minutes.
hmm
But I think that's also the nature of like the game. Like if you're in a close game, like you have to play your best players. And also, I think the Knicks didn't have the best depth this year. They had a solid 7 guys, I feel like 7 or 8. And but past that, like the guys that they would be putting in, it's like they're not really helping you out in the NBA, I think. And so he was forced to lean on his best players. But Tibbs, I feel like has dealt with a lot of his star players in the past getting injured. I mean, most
hmm
famously, I guess, or infamously, Derrick Rose. Um, but it is interesting. I mean, you think maybe they need a new perspective to come in.
hmm
I think they
hmm
probably need additional bench players, maybe trade Cat, honestly. He's good, but like he sometimes doesn't, it seems like he's not trying.
I know, but I feel like he fits well with the team. Like I feel like the Knicks were even better this season than last season with him on the team. I think
Yeah.
it was adds
I
in
think the trade
another
was worth it, 100%.
oh, 100%. And I think thinking about it, I think maybe part of the reason that they fired Thibodeau was, maybe the Knicks front office just imagine, okay, like with Tibbs, like this is the ceiling and we want more. We don't want to just be Eastern Conference Finals exits. We want to win an NBA championship. And maybe in their mind, they saw, Tom Thibodeau, the past 5 years, and they realized, this series, like, okay, this is probably the peak or like the ceiling that we're gonna get with him. We don't know if we could perform better with him. Then they might, think about moving in a different direction, right? So it
Yeah.
could be a thing where they bring up someone internally just because they've had some great success. They don't need to bring somebody in that's
They're gonna promote
new.
Brunson's
That's
dad,
new. Ooh, we'll see about
Rick
that. That'd be interesting
Brunson.
because like if you look at the Nuggets, like I know the Nuggets, they won a series and they didn't have the greatest postseason, but they went to Game 7 with the Thunder, and the Thunder, are the favorites to win, and with David Edelman, right?
Yeah.
They fired Mike Malone 10 games left in the season before playoffs. Definitely a head scratcher as well, especially when your team is about to head into the playoffs. And pull up David Edelman, and it seemed like he was doing a really good job, and he was an internal guy, he could. I think I don't know if it's official yet if they've made him the full time because he was the interim throughout, but. I mean, same situation with the Knicks where it's like, you know what, like we have someone internally that knows everything already just because we've already had the great success and we just want to promote them. And, we'll see what happens. I don't know who that is. I don't know the Knicks coaching staff well enough, but we'll see.
Yeah. The only guy I know on the Knicks coaching staff is Rick Brunson, Jalen Brunson's
Yeah,
dad. So maybe
it's
he
definitely a
gets
chance.
maybe he gets the promotion. Which would be, well, not the first time because Doc Rivers coached Austin Rivers, but like, one of the only times where I feel like a dad will coach his son in the NBA. Um, I feel like
Well,
there are a lot of
the Kings' new coach, right?
Doug Christie. Well, Doug Christie Jr. is not playing on the Sacramento Kings, I can tell you that. But
No, I'm just playing.
I
I'm
think
just
a
playing.
lot of um, another team that fired their head coach this season, the Memphis Grizzlies, fired Taylor Jenkins, who,
Hmm.
you know, resurrected that friend. Like I feel like he's was a great coach for that young core for the past few years.
He messed it up
He's in
though
the
because he
market.
was like he messed it up because they were like down 20 and he was like laughing and joking around.
Oh, was he?
Yeah. So they're like, yeah, you don't care anymore.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't know if
fair. I
that's the
mean,
reason, but I saw that, I was like, man,
yeah,
fumbled it.
and maybe he wanted out because,
I
man, who
mean, why would he
knows?
want out? He just getting started there.
Well, with the players, I feel like John Morant and all of his antics, and I think you got a player in Jaren Jackson who's very good, but maybe can be frustrating to coach at times. Like I feel like
Mm,
he's near fouled out like every single he's always in foul trouble. Um, and maybe he is looking for I don't know what his contract was lengthwise, how many years were left, but I feel like he would get another coaching opportunity elsewhere. And if you get fired, like you still get paid your salary, I'm pretty sure, depending on the
right.
contract. But if he
Hmm.
he was a good coach, so he probably got a pretty good contract extension, and then he'll be owed X amount of money over the next few years, and then he can also maybe go to a team that maybe he felt he reached his ceiling, with the Memphis Grizzlies. But it's beside the point. Beside the point. But like you got Taylor Jenkins on the open market, Mike Malone on the open market,
Mike Brown.
Mike Brown, looking through Frank Vogel. Nobody cares.
I don't think they're gonna do that again. That's
Sam
he's already not a
Castle.
stint there.
Sam Castle
Who?
was Sam
Oh,
Castle,
that.
assistant coach for the
Oh,
Celtics, was in the
yeah.
head
Oh,
coaching
Sam
cycle
Cassell. Yeah,
last
yeah,
year and decided to
yeah.
stay with the Celtics. And maybe he looks for a new job because Jason Tatum not going to be there and
Yeah.
retire next year. Maybe Celtics do a reset. Maybe he wants to go elsewhere. Maybe it's time for him to look for a full-time opportunity.
Hmm.
The Timberwolves assistant coach, Micah Nori, he was in the head coaching cycle last year. Decided to stay with the Timberwolves. He was the interim head coach when in the last playoffs when Chris Finch like broke his foot. So like he couldn't be on the sideline. So like Mike Inori was just on the sideline. I mean, it was still Chris Finch coaching, but Mike Inori was like barking out orders. Um, but yeah, people like that, there's definitely a lot of head coaching candidates I feel like out there right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if they promote Rick Brunson. The definitely make I feel like they would make Jalen Brunson happy, that's for sure.
Yeah. So we will see what happened there. And, also post NBA finals. I don't want to look past the NBA finals because, the best time of the year, for the NBA. But definitely will be interesting to see how a lot of these other teams, deal with their off seasons because I feel like there might be a decent amount of movement, but Who knows? Who knows? Um,
Yeah, there's apparently stars going to be traded all over the place, but it's like,
yeah, you never know. You
what
never know
assets are there?
until,
And
yeah,
if
maybe the
they,
Lakers might get Sabonis or something.
yeah, I saw. I mean, on my Instagram, I literally see,
There's so much crap,
I
dude,
see
though.
all these Lakers
Oh,
posts. They're gonna get everybody in the NBA apparently, and they're gonna give up nothing. It's like Gabe Vincent, Maxi Kleber in a first for, a star player. It's like, okay, well, you really think the other team's gonna take that? Like,
yeah.
or I'll see these mega
Well,
deals where the Lakers are gonna get Rudy Gobert, they're gonna get Dante DiVincenzo, and then they're gonna get Georges Niang from the Hawks, and even someone else, and all they're giving up is like Dalton Connect, Gabe Vincent, Maxi Cleveland in a first, and I'm like, dude, who's doing this? You know?
well, we were texting like last week about a trade we saw, Lakers getting Daniel Gafford.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be a great addition, especially
I think that
given the
was kind of
success
the
he had
type
with
of
Luka.
center we were trying to pinpoint on. That type of center, he's also played with Luka before, but like, pinpoint, that type of athletic center. And he's starting quality for sure. So I'd be happy with that for sure. That's definitely like a top target. I think the Lakers
Yeah,
should be looking for. But I mean, things will start to open up and things will start to make more sense once you kind of, know where people are going, kind of starts, who's resigning and then who's, dealing with the qualifying offers and, you go down the list and things start to open up a bit more. So within that window, hopefully the Lakers get a center. So
yeah, the NBA Finals I think lasts about 2 weeks, maybe 2.5. Drafts on the
mhm,
25th, and by that time the draft comes around, things start
mhm.
happening. So
I feel like the off season is so short. I feel like within a couple months they're already playing summer league games. Like it's just, it's just like that. So we'll be back before we know it. But yeah, well, summer league and the start of the season is a pretty big gap too. But summer league makes the season seem like it's coming sooner than it really is. But
yeah, and you get your
we'll
hopes up
see.
about, you know, these the G League players or even the rookies that you draft, and a little buzz, but
Yeah,
we'll see. We'll
yeah,
see. Probably Bronny in the summer
Bronny.
league. He's rumored to get minutes next season. So yeah, but yeah, NBA Finals, Pacers, Thunder. Tune in, and we'll be back maybe next week, week after,
Mhm.
to discuss. But thanks again, episode 20 of the Just Honin podcast with your host, Justin Mazzola, and the
Adam Honer.
Deuces.